Welcome to another episode of Washington in Focus. I'm your host, Tim Clauser, with the Center Square's Western Washington correspondent, Spencer Pauly, here to talk about a recent policy change in Seattle. Maybe not. Rumor has it that SPD, the Seattle Police Department, will no longer arrest people for public drug use. Spencer, you've dug into this a little bit, as have other journalists in the region over the last few days. Why don't you tell me a little bit what you've heard from the city and how it kind of lines up with what everyone's saying?
Sure. So we were seeing initial reports, especially coming from the Seattle Police Officer Guild president, saying that the city, and it would be under Mayor Katie Wilson's first act as mayor, that they would totally just not arrest any offenders of open drug use. So this would be just a total reversal on the Blake fix. And that was shocking because you never saw any release from the mayor's office or the city attorney's office. So this is why, Tim, we always have to have that official confirmation. And what I found is that the Seattle Police Department said this stems from an overstatement by the Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes. So I guess just some context here for you is that at the start of the year, new Seattle City Attorney Erica Evans sent a memo to him saying that LEAD, which is basically a jail diversion program that has been in place since 2011, well established. She said that the LEAD team will assess any previous attempts at engagement with any referred individuals. And from there, if they find that that referred individual has failed to demonstrate a level of engagement with the program, then they'll assess what the most suitable action is in consultation with the criminal diversion chief. All that to say is that Barnes put out a statement, or he sent an email to officers saying, quote, effective immediately, all charges related to drug possession and or drug use will be diverted from prosecution to the LEAD program. That is a big assumption there, and it is not true, Tim. That is a mishap by Barnes there, and caused the disaster that happened yesterday.
The email is kind of a little bit misleading just at first glance looking at it. I mean, he opens up, look, Happy New Year's, everyone. We're going to continue as normal. And then in all bold, by the way, we're not going to be arresting for people for public drug use, except yada, yada, the LEAD program. I mean, I understand a lot of people's concern there. I mean, you're reading that we're not going to arrest for public drug use. I mean, for one, walking around Seattle, it doesn't seem like they're arresting many people for public drug use. I know that it does happen, but Spokane has a similar thing in place over there. I cover Spokane. A few months ago, they kind of changed their camping ban up, their homelessness camping ban, where whenever they stopped someone, they had to offer services. And if that person declined services, they could just walk away and they couldn't cite that person. And a lot of people were saying, let people using drugs in public get away. And then they changed the law in the last few months where now officers have discretion. They can choose to cite or they can choose not to. And it sounds like that's kind of exactly what the Seattle police chief is saying in his email is like, look, we're not going to arrest for public drug use, but if they continue to use drugs in front of you and are refusing to stop and they're not accepting the service, then arrest them, continue as normal. And I think that kind of got lost in the weeds with a lot of people's reporting. I think it is interesting, though. I mean, you see this change come out right after the new year. And you mentioned Erica Evans. She took over in the city attorney's office on January 1st. She just beat incumbent Ann Davidson in the November general election. She's not a Republican like Davidson is. So it's kind of a pendulum swift, not only in the mayor's office from Bruce Harrell, who was a Democrat, but not so much a socialist like Wilson. But you have that shift from not only Harrell to Wilson, but from Davidson to Evans. So it is interesting to see how everything's going on. And like you said, Mayor Wilson, she's not accepting that this policy change came from her, but it's kind of like that. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this. A lot of people might not understand it. But there's this meme where there's a bunch of Spider-Men standing in a circle and they're all pointing at each other. And that's kind of what it seemed like we were at over this past weekend.
Yeah. And everyone's pointing to which direction. So, people pointed to Seattle Police Officer Guild president because he put out a statement responding to Barnes's email saying this is horrible. I think he called it the jail diversion program, suicidal empathy. Now, he had a good, interesting point there that a lot of police officers are reluctant to just refer cases to lead because they do not believe it works. So this is a change where we're talking about Evans as the new city attorney. Of course, at that pendulum swinging, we're going to see a more leniency to offenders of open drug use. But, with this new requirement that we're going to see a more focus on lead as a program here, we'll see what happens as a result. But we already know that the Police Officer Guild president isn't in favor, and he kind of is representative of Seattle the police force as a whole. But, this already got huge ripple effects here. We saw Washington State Republican Chair Jim Walsh calling this an imbecile order, pointing to Katie Wilson. But this stems from a memo from the city attorney's office. And Wilson has since denied allegations of any directive that ordered officers to halt open drug use. And I think this is all just an example of how news moves fast, and we should be very careful of how we report this and make sure we have all the truths to the story.
Yeah, that's definitely true, Spencer. I mean, you mentioned it in your story as well. Pierce County Sheriff Keith Swang, making an offer to Seattle officers to come over to the sheriff's department in Tacoma. I mean, there is a lot of drama around Katie Wilson and this new administration in Seattle, and I think it's going to continue. But it is interesting to see. I mean, will this make any difference? Will things continue as is? Was it kind of just an email that caused a lot of drama, or will we see a big change on the streets in the next few years? I think a lot of people are kind of worried about that with Katie Wilson, seeing homelessness and public drug use increase, but it's something that we will continue to have our eyes on over the next few months.
I'm going to say this real quick. This is the first full week of 2026 when it comes to city government. So let's all just wait and see what happens. Of course, Wilson hasn't announced any new policy, executive order, but of course I'll be keeping an eye on that and seeing where the city goes in this direction of 2026.
There's a long road ahead, and I know that Wilson is hoping to kind of build on those public safety wins towards the end of Harold's term. But Spencer, appreciate you covering this. For any of our readers hoping to catch more of that coverage, you can read it at thecentersquare.com. Otherwise, thank you for joining us for another episode of Washington in Focus.